It seems to me that what we call our legal system, which is supposed to, maybe our legal system is as squeaky as my floor, but our legal system is supposed to stand as an arbiter of morality, what it means to be human together, what we should and should not do together, or as individuals. It's interestingly narrow in that it's excellent at prosecuting and persecuting individuals, but it never prosecutes or persecutes groups, collectives of any kind, including itself, with anything like the same compelling, urgent, aggressive insistence. And I think, very honestly, the entire system and our courts is an atrocity that our prisons magnify and become the standing embodiments of. And very honestly, I think that their results, and the results of enacting systems like these to prosecute and torture each other at ever-increasing costs, are not only a reasonable portion of the cause of the problem that they advertise themselves as the answer to, they also ensure that these problems cannot be resolved by their form, implications, and activity, in which we are all made complicit financially and as citizens, so that, by extension, the acts and functions of the courts and the prisons become the acts and functions of our minds and societies and cultures, and these are not only terrifically wrong-minded, they're actively poisonous when sustained or engineered, developed, made common, when they become our expectations of justice. And the authorities that declare to us what justice must or should look like. If someone were to declare to you that a monstrous abomination assembled in a laboratory was your beloved infant child, you would immediately know that this could not be so. In our case, we've never seen the child. We have no idea what justice looks like. We were born into and have grown up with the monstrous abomination assembled in a laboratory. And that abomination stands over us and declares to us the nature of our identities and relationships, obligations, values, imperatives. And its declarations get more toxic and deadly every time we reenact them, dramatically so. And we, again, never having seen the authentic child, having no sense of what justice might look like, largely simply either comply or object or become one of the reactive signals, one of the symptoms, under the pressure of an entirely unimaginable projection of morality and justice. We adopt either one of its branches, as opinion usually, or we become what it prosecutes. This is relatively natural. in the body there are cells that serve different functions, and one can imagine that an intelligent idea of what justice looks like might be something like nature, our own bodies, animals, ecologies. Now, of course, it's easy to interpret these in language in a wide variety of ways, but what I want to get across is that the things that we call crimes and punish individuals for are signals about our failure to assemble intelligent, authentic, mutual culture together all the time, you and me, everybody. And we sort of go along with the standing bodies of confusion and structured toxicity that stand in the place that we would otherwise assemble something true and human and intelligent. But in the body, if we did anything like what we do with each other and with our court systems and in our prisons and with our police and with our armed forces, that body would die the first time any of those processes were enacted. It wouldn't last an instant, because the ideas that drive these functions in human cultures are verbal fictions. And what happens in actual relationships and living systems and bodies and minds is a completely other order of phenomenon. So let's take an example, however clumsily I may present it. In the body, we have a complex array of processes, cells, and cellular products that we refer to as the immune system. And this is a kind of intelligence, really. And in order to talk about this, many scientists and authors use metaphors that are popular or easy for people to understand, they think. And these metaphors thus often involve war, policing, etc. But that's not what's going on in bodies, and if it was, we wouldn't live through it. There's a cell called a macrophage, and the macrophage sort of runs around patrolling in a sense, and if it encounters a questionable situation of the proper type, what it will do is absorb the possible intruder or problem, and it will signal about the structure of that problem. And other cells in the body read this signal and then form responses. This is not a prosecution or war metaphor. This is a relational intelligence metaphor. It's a sensing of something that is truly like the self and the body of a given person in a given moment, and not. They can make mistakes, but here's the thing. The people that we're prosecuting are signals about problems in our culture. They're signals about what we've done and failed to do. And to pretend that those people are individually, completely responsible has to be a fiction. It's impossible that that could ever be true. To then make that fiction concrete and demand that it be known as fact and truth, accounted in numbers and prosecuted formally and punished, explosively magnifies every problem that the original situation may have given birth to, and further ensures that at an ever-increasing cost, that problem will be preserved into the future. And not just for the people involved, but for everyone. Since, quite literally, all of us are the prosecutors in the courtrooms of the United States. We are, and it's not merely figuratively, we pay money, we work and give the money to the government, and they run the courts and all of this. And we are both financially and by membership, complicit in every act of every court, in every single action that happens in every prison, in every single event that happens in every war. We are personally connected and responsible to these matters. And so back to the macrophages in the body. They absorb what might be problems and signal about the structure. The body adapts and produces molecular products that can resolve and test and do various kinds of things. And the macrophage dies. But imagine if, unlike the body, instead of reading the macrophage and resolving the problem, looking at the structure together as a body, as a unity, asking the right questions about it and such, we simply attacked and punished the macrophage. Well, here's what would happen. The first time he got an infection, he'd explode. Yeah, it would completely not work ever, even one time. And this is actually what our courts and legal systems and armed forces are like. They're like something that doesn't ever work even one time. And I've often heard people ask questions that rather astonish me, questions like, well, what do you suggest we do instead? And I think when I hear such questions that these people, that I have not made myself clear enough, because if one is consistently always doing something that one knows to be impossibly confused, conflicted, dangerous, immoral, unintelligent, and prone to become a compulsion, the crucial first step is simply to notice that and stop doing it. The effects of us just stopping doing all of that would be so profound that it would change the entire context. There's no way we can know what to do in that context, because under these effects it will never arise. Justice doesn't look like putting the burden of confusion, social isolation, desperation, poverty, illness, despair on the individual. It certainly didn't start with them. It's very difficult to see how they could be responsible for that. Most children are born profoundly endowed to become incredibly, exquisitely, provocatively human. And like fish in toxic water, they absorb the context and respond, and they signal rather authentically about the nature of the environments and situations that pervade our common human waking experience, which I have to admit is fairly unimaginably bizarre and conflicted. No one can adjust well to a context that is as unspeakably peculiar as the modern moment as an individual. So an intelligent culture would both understand and account for, quote unquote, this matter in every proceeding, and would develop a system capable of indicting itself when necessary, and perhaps even oriented in this fashion, so that better and more true systems are produced, whose goal is not punishment or even correction of the individual, but perhaps the intelligent analysis of the problems that lead to these events, and the social intelligence to modulate how we are human together to resolve their sources. If something makes a million fires and it just keeps making fires, putting those fires in prison and paying every possible amount of money is not sane by any standard whatsoever. There's no rational argument by which this works. or successful or adaptive, sustainable, progressive, anything. It just doesn't work, right? You have to go to whatever's producing the fires and make the fires stop happening. And since we suppose that the fires start in the individuals, it absolutely cannot be the case. Ever, really. So like prosecuting and punishing them is the wrong idea to begin with. Making that an overriding imperative is insane. The best thing we could do would be to stop that, because if we don't, we develop minds compliant with those projections of humanity, morality, justice, mutuality, society, culture, membership. It is impossible to be human or intelligent under such a shadow. It's certainly impossible to be together.